This is the Front Porch Political Talk Show. My name is Hatton Humphrey, and give me just a second, and he'll be right back. We've got Ken Johnston with us today. Again.
Here I am.
I hit go, and he stands up. All right, let's try that again. Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Front Porch Political Talk Show. My name is Hatton Humphrey.
This is Ken Johnston.
And we thank you guys for joining us. Oh, it's going to be a fun Sunday, isn't it?
Always.
So we've been working hard on getting things, better in the background. I started to fire up some different targets for our live streams, and not real happy with the results. So for now, we're going to stay on Facebook. We're going to stay on YouTube. I am making a bit of an executive decision. The Thursday music reactions. This one I'm going to go to Facebook, but after that, we're probably going to do YouTube only.
Okay.
And the reason is it's just getting zero movement on Facebook. But I don't know if that is us or if that is Facebook, to be completely honest with you. But we're getting a lot of good feedback on the music reactions. We'd really like to get some feedback because I see the action, I see the views. I'd like to get some feedback on the political commentary as well. But before we get into it, want to say thank you for joining us, and please on YouTube, click the subscribe button, and if you like what we're doing, hit the thumbs up button. If you don't like what we're doing, you can hit the dislike button twice. That's up to you. I wanted to open with the opening ceremonies. Now, little bit of interesting, the Chinese Winter Olympics, or the Winter Olympics are being hosted in Beijing, China. The U.S. chose not to send a diplomatic representation. Other countries did, as we'll see in a minute. And there are some interesting political spins that have been put on here. What I find really interesting as we go into what we're about to watch is the
It's never good. Never good here during a live
what
podcast.
What I find interesting is the fact that the network presenters were willing and able to make the comments that we're going to hear in a minute. So let me go ahead and bring that in. And it's just a short snippet. Now, something interesting. We're talking about about Hong Kong, about Taiwan, Hong Kong. Then we throw in Denmark and then Ukraine. And it's interesting because normally countries are introduced in the language of the host, in the alphabetical order based on the language of the host country. And the characters that are used to name Taiwan, which they call Chinese Taipei, Hong Kong, Denmark, and Ukraine fall in Chinese alphabetical order. Not exactly sure, but okay, let's see if we can get this to work. Oh. All right, well, that did not work. So as I sit here and try real quick to come on, resume, please. There we go. All right. Here we go.
These next two delegations significant in Chinese policy and geopolitics. First, Taiwan, which is known as Chinese Taipei at the Olympics after a compromise brokered by the IOC 4 decades ago. Since the Chinese Communist Party took power 73 years ago, relations between these neighbors are strained. Taiwan, which remains self-governed and enjoys U.S. support, has seen increased Chinese military activity off its coast, raising global concerns about a conflict and a war.
So you hear the conversation, you hear the commentary here from, and this is NBC, Peacock, as there, and it's interesting because not only is there no spin on it, but they're just pretty much saying, here's the situation. And
well, I don't know if you caught it. There is a bit of a spin. I was kind of surprised.
Yeah.
Because he went back and referred to them as Taiwan.
Yes.
Could that be because...
Yes, and
is that because...
Would that be because...
He's the American...
Because he's what? Possibly. I mean, this is... and it's interesting, both Hong Kong and Taiwan appear because of deals brokered with the IOC.
Right.
And he makes mention of the military activity. He makes mention of, and when they talk about Hong Kong, well, I'll get to it in just a minute. But yeah, there is. I didn't see that as spin. I didn't see calling them Taiwan as spin. But maybe that's just because I expected them to be called Taiwan.
And it could be. It might not be spin. It could just be that he's, as the American broadcaster, that's what the American population. That's what we know Taiwan is.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. All right. Let me pick this back up.
Warm reception from some of the about 40% full bird's nest for Chinese Taipei as they enter.
Now, what complicates the picture here, Mike, is the U.S.'s role. Although former President Carter terminated diplomatic recognition and a mutual defense treaty with Taiwan in 1978, the Congress voted to maintain an informal relationship through the 1979 Taiwan Relations Act, which is the arrangement to this day.
So the woman that you just heard was an Asian American. She's a Chinese American that is an author. She lives in the U.S. but she teaches. She teaches Chinese politics, Chinese concepts, and that's the level of specialists that they brought in. They brought in people that have lived in, grown up in, or been heavily exposed to the Chinese culture. Actually, before all of this started, it was the announcer and then the woman that was speaking, and then there's another man there who was the head of the one of the news organizations, press corps in China, and he said, it's interesting because with the Olympics here, reporters are actually being allowed to report. People are allowed to travel. They're actually opening things up for now.
Right.
All right, let's get on to Hong Kong.
Here the reception now for Hong Kong, also a unique Olympic distinction. It's the only delegation as arranged by the IOC. Its own delegation, I should say, despite being under Chinese control. Longtime British colony, returned to China in '97 under the principle of one country, two systems. If you follow the news, you know the recent crackdowns against pro-democracy forces and the press have eroded freedoms and significantly increased tensions there.
So I'm going to go ahead and mute while Denmark comes in.
Winter Games medal women's curling back in 1988.
Daneland.
Yep. So Denmark falls in between the middle of this because of the alphabet. But it's one interesting thing is how little some of these delegations are. So you saw 1, 2. Pakistan is the third most populous country in the world, right? It's China, Pakistan, India, right? If I remember correctly. Pakistan and India, unfortunately, their climates, they each have one athlete at the Olympics, at the Winter Olympics. But interestingly, they pointed out for Denmark, the only medal that they've won is in curling. You'd expect more from Denmark, but nope. So anyway, Denmark marks through, but you heard the commentary there on Hong Kong.
Anti-democratic crackdowns.
Yes, Democratic crackdowns on the press. So I'm interested. I'm going to be interested to see how the sanity that the sports press has covering the political side of the Olympics continues, or if it does. That's a question mark. All right, let's let Denmark get through, and then it's the icing on the cake for this part.
The athletes of Ukraine now make their entrance, and thoughts surely not far from the unfolding situation at home for them. Vladimir Putin, who is here tonight, certainly has the world watching. Russia has amassed more than 100,000 troops on 3 sides of Ukraine. U.S. officials have threatened severe...
Okay, wait. Let me pause it. There's the money shot. Or wait. You get it back here. Come.
The athletes of Ukraine now make their entrance, and thoughts surely not far from the unfolding situation at home for them. Vladimir Putin, who is here tonight, certainly has the world watching. Russia has amassed more than 100,000 troops on 3 sides of Ukraine.
Again,
U.S. officials have threatened severe sanctions if...
He's asleep. And he's got an earwig in, but he's sitting there, his eyes are closed, and then all of a sudden he...
Bring in Andy Brown, our China expert here. There is some precedent, unfortunately.
Wait, there's something I need to pay attention to here.
Sochi were underway. Russia moved to occupy the Crimean Peninsula in Ukraine.
The big question, will Putin invade Ukraine during the Olympics? He sent troops into Georgia during the 2008 games. But whilst he supports Putin's goals in Ukraine, he won't be happy if his Winter Olympics are upstaged by Russian tanks and missiles.
That's an awesome quote. While Xi Jinping, the Chinese leader, supports Putin, he will not be happy if his Winter Olympics are upstaged by Russian tanks and missiles. I love it. I absolutely love it. You cannot understate just how, and I heard this, and quite honestly, given how the media has been, especially on domestic news, and not really talking a lot about international news unless it's a good distraction.
Right.
I was surprised to see how the news media carried it. You know what I mean? It's really interesting to see, to see straightforward. And again, there was, as you said, the Taiwan versus Chinese Taipei. Again, were they talking to an audience that we expected to hear?
More than likely.
Now, what was very interesting was when the Russian, what do they have to refer to themselves as? The ROC.
Because they got banned from the games, so it's the Russian.
The Russian Olympic Committee.
Yeah, they're only allowed. Yeah.
When they came in, of course, Putin stood up and was clapping.
Absolutely.
And I there were some really interesting entries coming in. Jamaica still has a bobsled team. Actually, now they have 2. They have a men's and they have a women's bobsled team now. It's awesome. They literally, when they came in, I just started cracking up laughing because of course, Cool Running started going through my head. there was an entry from American Samoa, and I forget what there was one athlete from American Samoa.
Yeah,
but he comes. Yeah, the sexy. Was it Tonga? No, it wasn't Tonga. It was American
That's
Samoa.
what they're calling him, though.
What's that?
That's what they're calling him.
Yes. Yeah. So he walks in. Let me see if I can get a picture up of this guy.
He walks in in this -5-degree weather, dressed as if he's in American Samoa.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Let me just. I'll go ahead and share this real quick. Oh no, he is from Tonga, and he is I forget what he's talking. We give this medical medal for public service now. But the funny thing, I think he's like alpine skiing or maybe skeleton. I mean, it's just one of the ski sports.
Gotcha.
But the funny thing is, he comes in this. This isn't the recent one. Let me find the recent one. Hold on a second. Let me unshare here. I'll be right back. Yep, there we go. Come on. Oh no, they're saying this
dude's crazy.
What's that?
Long story short, the dude is crazy.
The dude's also a male model, and he walked out just completely in this, in a traditional, outfit. It's just like, wow.
Awesome.
It was awesome. Okay, enough about the Olympics. Because the U.S. is currently placing 13th in the medal count. Oh well. So you had sent over, we had a couple of articles that we wanted to talk about beyond that. I do want to keep this. Let's try to keep it at the 30-minute mark. I know we've talked about things for about 19. So let's, without further ado, and with a little bit more stink, I'm sorry. The jokes write themselves, Ken.
They do.
In Winston-Salem, that's your neck of the woods. It does not look good. I mean, all joking aside,
the Weaver fertilizer plant in Winston-Salem has been burning. This article is actually old. I was trying to find an updated one for about 5 or 6 days now.
Oh wow.
Yeah, they pulled the firefighters out. There's a train load of ammonium nitrate the fire was starting to get close. Yes.
Oh, dude.
Yes. They evacuated a mile around the plant. And talking with some friends of mine that are in EMS up here.
Yeah.
That wasn't big enough. If that plant had exploded, probably would have been a bit bigger than a mile radius.
Yeah. Yeah. And apparently in some of the things that I'm seeing, not new, that's not new in here. There's potential for a large explosion.
Over the last couple of days, they actually pulled the firefighters out. There was only one truck in there that was operating remotely to keep water on the boxcar with the ammonium nitrate in it, to keep it cool. Yeah.
No.
Over the last 24 to 48 hours, they've started moving the firefighters back in.
Right.
And they've still got some hot spots, but they don't have the big fear of a massive explosion anymore. But this was all here we go. This was all the rage for a couple days up here.
Yeah, and yeah, I did find a more recent article. Let me pull this one in. It's some background info on the fire itself, but taught the fact that they had 600 tons of ammonium nitrate. They evacuated a 1 mile area. They did allow families to return, but the Winston-Salem attorney, so the town attorney, is filing a lawsuit against the plant. And it looks like it alleges the fire and evacuation. Actually, let's back that up a little bit. Attorney Kathleen Dubois, who lives about a mile from the plant, is suing because of loss of property. This isn't the town. This makes it look like the town is actually suing, but no, this is an individual suit against.
Here's where things get a little interesting. This has just come to light. I didn't hear about this, but apparently on December 26th there was a fire there too.
Yeah, there was. This is not the first fire that's been there.
So this is gonna get interesting. This is gonna be.
And so here's a question mark though, Ken, because we talk about about events like this, and the first thing that somebody's going to ask is what were they doing? Apparently everything that they were doing operationally was above board.
Yeah.
This attorney is suing because they've knowingly kept these dangerous materials stored close to innocent neighbors for years. It's kind of like up here there was a legal battle between a neighborhood and a crematorium, because apparently some of the recent neighbors, or some of the people that lived within the area, noticed that there was stuff coming out of the stack, and it turns out that the staff had gotten careless with their cleaning and some of the other stuff. But people, businesses do have regulations that they have to adhere to.
Right.
You can argue whether it's government's job to tell a business how to do its job. In certain cases, especially when there's things like this, I guarantee you there was definitely some level of oversight by North Carolina for a fertilizer plant, or by the county or the city.
Right.
But yeah, that's
it's been brutal.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of those things where, and they're worried. Just glancing at some of the documents, some of the things they're saying in the suit, I guess they're worried that the company's going to try and cover something up because it says all documents must be, preserved. So, not entirely sure on that one.
Either.
So another thing that, go ahead.
No, we'll see. You're absolutely correct. It's just been
time will tell.
Time will tell. It's just been the news up here. It's pretty much everybody's been talking about for the last couple of days.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting, and as we go to now the marijuanamovement.net website, not a site that I expected to land on for this, medicinal and recreational use of marijuana seems to be a very easy political move that various elected officials can take. Right? We've got, New York, as of January 1st, both medical and recreational are legal. They have not determined the distribution method for recreational. Medicinal, they've got. Yeah, I don't want that. Thank you. But they've had some stuff. But one of the interesting challenges, especially for medicinal marijuana, for veterans, is marijuana is still illegal at a federal level.
Right.
And so the VA has been challenged with the increased acceptance in the private market for medicinal marijuana. And how can veterans make use of something that is legal in a state but not at the federal? Because if you get treated by the VA, like for example, when I got my COVID vaccines, I got them at the VA,
right?
And that meant that I was not vaccinated in the state of New York. I had been vaccinated at the federal government,
right?
And when I did that, that then meant that I had, when I went to go get, New York has its own, little app for showing proof of vaccination. When I went to try and get it on the app, it was like 6 months to a year before, it was over a year before I could actually get on the app.
Oh, geez.
Because the records weren't there. Because the app was pulling New York State vaccination records. So anything that the VA does has to fall in line with federal law.
Right.
So it does look like, and of course it's Portland. Portland branch of the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs is teaming up with an Oregon university talking about the use of medical cannabis.
I don't know about you, but I have absolutely no issues with medicinal cannabis.
It's interesting because as time has gone on, I've had fewer issues with it, but there
are certain levels of anxiety. PTSD is one of them. That it can definitely help.
It could definitely help, as long as it is done appropriately.
I agree.
I'll be absolutely blunt. One of
my they write themselves.
They do write themselves, don't they? Good night, everybody.
He'll be here all week. Don't forget to
try the fish. There's a friend of mine that her husband had PTSD and a TBI and decided to self-medicate with marijuana. And it, while it did calm him, it brought out the worst in him too.
Really?
And yes. Not going to get into more than that, but so there is a concern that if you're going to use it medicinally, you have to do it under the care of a healthcare provider. And there has to be, there has to be an exit strategy if it becomes an issue. I understand. I know we're gonna have at least one person who marijuana is not addictive. Okay.
It used to not be. First off, anybody with an addictive personality can get addicted to anything.
Yep.
The second thing is with the technological advances in hydroponics, the amount of THC they're able to get into marijuana these days is so much higher than it used to be. It's actually becoming addictive. Has been for about the last 10 to 15 years.
I'm not surprised. So, I think we're going to have to wrap it on this one, but I find it interesting that the VA is working with colleges to see about normalizing this, and hopefully it does become a resource that the VA can use. The biggest challenge that we run into, and it's the way I was raised, it's the way you were raised, probably. The monolithic drugs bad, and pot was a drug,
right?
And it has been labeled as by the federal government as such. We're not going to argue about I'm not going to argue about the history of why it was and all of that. That's a completely different conversation.
Really.
The tobacco farmers versus the hemp farmers and all of that.
It wasn't just the tobacco farmers; the paper farmers had a lot to say about it too.
Okay.
It was,
but regardless, marijuana got lumped in with a lot of other things. The federal government needs to address this. We've had so many states legalize it for either medical or recreational or both.
Right. So let's end on this note.
Mm-hmm.
Do you and I want to have this conversation? Do we want to do a one-off and discuss the legalization of marijuana in the United States and in North Carolina and New York?
Well, it's already legalized in New York. Both. Actually, let's use the correct term. It's been decriminalized.
Decriminalized, which is not legalized. It's very different.
Which is not right. So it's been decriminalized in New York for both medical and recreational. The challenge that I look at is, how do we bridge the gap between drugs bad when we have teenagers and marijuana is now on this at the same level or nearing the same level as cigarettes and alcohol, from a retail perspective?
Ooh.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's a conversation that will need to be had. And maybe it is a one-off. We still have to do the one on censorship, which it's funny. I said at the top, we were going to, I'm looking at alternative, distribution sources. One of the big, he and his girlfriend go and do, talk about Reddit posts on different things. And there's always a couple of racy ones that he censors out and all that. It's MXR. YouTube shut down his channel with no warning, no strike, with no standing issues.
Yep.
And took him like a day or two to get it back up. But the censorship thing is something that we definitely need to have a conversation on as well.
We do.
Maybe we do a one-off episode, soon on both those issues. But for now, we've hit our time limit. We're trying to keep things within that time. I want to thank you guys. Thank everybody for joining us. As I said, we're gonna investigate some other things, but until then, we'll invite you to join us Thursday, where we'll do our music review. The one we're gonna do today, do Thursday, is it does have an interesting little political spin on it. So it'll be interesting, it'll be fun, and it will be different words in a different order. Thanks a lot for joining us, everybody. Have a great night.
Have a good one, everybody.